and then an opening statement from Alicia, and then Senator Sanders.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Sanders, for joining us. I do apologize for a little bit of noise behind me. We are right in the midst of our Assembly 2020 at the National Domestic Workers Alliance. So this is the quietest place I could find.
Okay.
We're really excited that you've joined us today, and I want to do a quick overview of Black to the Future Action Fund. We are an organization that works to make Black communities powerful in politics so that we can be powerful in the rest of our lives. We do that by understanding that the challenges that we face are incredibly complex. And to solve those challenges, we need to make sure that we are experimenting, innovating, but most of all, we need to ensure that Black communities have Black political power. We are doing our very first endorsement as the Black to the Future Action Fund, and so we're excited that you're participating in this process. Typically, what we do is we endorse Black candidates with a progressive vision for how to improve the lives of Black communities. In this presidential race, of course, that is not possible. So we are really looking for the best candidate who has a progressive and visionary approach to how to improve the lives of Black communities across America. So with that, it would be wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to do a quick round of introductions on our team, and then we'd love to open up with your opening statement.
Thank you.
So Senator Sanders, this is Kiana Gregory again, Political Director for the Black to the Future Action Fund.
And again, this is Dallas Diaz, the Digital Organizer for Black to the Future Action Fund.
Wonderful. Senator Sanders, would you give us your opening statement?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me congratulate all of you in Black to the Future for the enormously important work that you are doing. This country faces enormous challenges. Our campaign is attempting to address these challenges, and as president, I certainly will. And at the top of the list is the fact that we are living in extraordinarily discriminatory society, especially under Trump, where racism is rampant, where xenophobia is rampant, homophobia is rampant, white nationalism is growing. So we have enormous challenges in front of us. And I guess the first point that I would make is that our administration, our cabinet will look like America. When you turn on the television, you will see what America looks like. All I can guarantee you is there'll be one old white guy. I'll be there. But you're going to see a very, very diverse administration. Second of all, the issues that we are dealing with are, I think, the issues impacting the working class of this country. And what our campaign is about is not just beating Trump, who obviously is the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, but it is taking on the greed and corruption of the corporate elite. So we're taking them all on, and that makes this campaign unique. We're building an unprecedented, multiracial, multi-generational grassroots movement of many, many hundreds of thousands of people. And I think you're all familiar with our agenda, which is raising the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour, equal pay for equal work, ending the absurd situation where women are making 80 cents an hour compared to men, and for minority women, it's even a lot lower than that. We're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free, put a heck of a lot of money into HBCUs. We are going to cancel all student debt through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. I am proud to have introduced the lead legislation on Medicare for all, which will finally end the absurdity of the United States being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all of our people as a human right. We must address the crisis of climate change. This is an existential threat, and anyone who is not talking about dealing with climate change in a bold way is endangering the lives of our kids and future generations. We have, I think, a very, very strong proposal on criminal justice, which reforms a broken and racist system, which has more people in jail in the United States today than any other country on earth. among many other features to it. We're going to end private prisons and detention centers, legalize marijuana, and make sure that our young people have jobs and education, not more jails and incarceration. We've been pleased to work with people like Sean King and others in creating that criminal justice proposal. So with that said, I want to thank you all again. I know the work that you are doing is not easy. And at the end of the day, it's not only the way we beat Trump, but the way we transform this country is when millions of people become engaged in the political process. That's what you are doing, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you, Senator. That was an incredibly inspiring vision. Please tell us a little bit about your agenda for Black America and how your policies and your agenda might align or diverge from the policy priorities that we've expressed in the Black Agenda 2020.
Well, I think that our agenda is very similar. We are more than aware that in the midst of a nation in which half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, that the situation for the African American community is even worse, that the gap between white wealth and Black wealth, unbelievably, is 10 to 1, that Black maternal deaths are 3 times higher than whites, that schools in African American communities are underfunded, and that we have a criminal justice system in which, for example, just one example, Black and white communities do marijuana at about equal rates. African Americans are 4 times more likely to be arrested. So I think the agenda that we are talking about is investing heavily in distressed communities, which unfortunately too often are African American communities. That means tripling funding for low-income Title I schools, putting a lot more money into schools where they have a large number of kids with disabilities. It means building 10 million units of housing in this country. So we end the absurdity of having 500,000 people homeless tonight and 18 million people spending 50% of their limited incomes on housing. So I think on healthcare, as I mentioned earlier, we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare. Impacts everybody, impacts the African American community even more. So I think by and large, your agenda and our agenda are fairly close.
Excellent. Can you talk with us a little bit about the most significant policy or political achievement that you've made that has positively impacted Black communities?
Yes.
And if you
absolutely.
could, in your answer, will you share how you also involved Black communities in this achievement from start to finish?
Well, the answer I would say is that as part of the Affordable Care Act, and I am on the committee that wrote the Affordable Care Act, which I think has done some very good things, but we have to do a lot more. We have to move to Medicare for all. But as part of that, there were $11 billion allocated to the expansion of community health centers, federally qualified community health centers. And that meant that millions and millions of lower income Americans, disproportionately African American and Latino, millions of people now have access to primary health care, to dental care, to low-cost prescription drugs, and to mental health counseling. It's a major, major achievement in terms of making sure that all of our people, or at least that we move to getting more people access to primary health care. Our staff includes members of who used to work for the Black Caucus, who gave us a lot of insight into how these proposals would impact the African American community, which they do big time.
Excellent.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
At Black, I wanted to shift the conversation a little bit, Senator. This is Kiana, to talking about governance and your political
Talking about what?
philosophy.
Governance?
Yes,
Governance?
yes, sir. Governance.
Okay. Yep.
So
Yep.
the question is, at Black to the Future Action Fund, we believe that how one governs is equally as important as the policies they espouse. Please tell us a little about your political philosophy and approach to governance by and for the people, sharing an example of your current work to involve Black communities in decision-making and the influencing embedding of policy.
Well, Kiana, thank you for that question, and you are 100% right. And I don't know if any of you have heard any of the speeches that I give, but almost always the point that I make is this struggle is us, not me. That's actually the message of our campaign, that we are in this together, that real change, and if you study the history of America, where it's the labor movement, the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, the environmental movement, the women's movement, it is always millions of people standing up together fighting for justice. That's the only way real change takes place. And I think our administration will be very different from any other administration, if I must say so. And that is what I believe in the bottom of my heart is that we cannot take on the powerful special interests in this country unless millions of people become involved. And I have said publicly and repeat to you that I will not just be quote unquote commander-in-chief as president, but organizer-in-chief. And that is we're going to reach out to the African-American community, the Latino community, the trade union community, communities that historically have not had the power that they should. And that's the only way I do that, because that's the only way I know that we could bring about change. You want Medicare for all, you're going to have to take on the insurance companies. You want lower cost prescription drugs, you're going to have to take on the pharmaceutical industry. You want to end endless wars, we have to take on the military industrial complex. And that involves millions of people standing up. And clearly, as I said earlier, what our administration will be about is involving people in the decision-making power at the grassroots level in a way I believe this country has never seen.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Can you please share your top political and policy priorities for your first 100 days in office and describe in detail how those priorities will impact Black communities?
On my first day in office, as you all know, there are some things the president can do alone through executive order, but the more important issues have got to be done legislatively. But there are a number of things that the president can do through executive order. On day one, we will sign an executive order that will legalize marijuana in every state in this country. The so-called war on drugs has been extremely destructive to millions and millions of people. In my rallies, I often ask people, raise your hand if you know anybody arrested for possession of marijuana. It is mind-blowing how many hands go up. So on day one, what we can do is take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act effectively from a federal perspective, legalizing it all over this country as part of our effort to end the war on drugs. We're going to move aggressively to expunge the records of those arrested for possession of marijuana. And the third thing we're going to do, and this came precisely from my friends in the African-American community who said, you know what, Bernie, not good enough to legalize marijuana. You don't want a handful of corporations running legalized marijuana in this country. And we have built into our criminal justice proposal billions of dollars to help those communities hit hardest by the war on drugs, the African-American community, Latino community, the Native American community, help them start businesses to legally make money on the legalization of marijuana. The other thing that we can do is end private prisons and detention centers. That is a very big deal. On day one, through executive order, we can make sure that any corporation interacting with the federal government, getting contracts from the federal government, pays workers at least $15 an hour and provides equal pay for equal work so that women get a fair shake. Those are some of the things that we could do on day one.
Thank you, Senator.
Excellent.
If I could ask a follow-up. Yes. If I could ask a follow-up about executive actions, we've recently polled the Black to the Future Action Fund community and asked them which issues are top of mind for you. And by and large, the economy won out. Specifically, folks have an interest in living wages and closing the racial wealth gap. And I'm just wondering, if elected president, what kinds of executive actions to address those economic issues can we expect from your administration?
Good. One of the ongoing concerns is that the African American community is not getting its fair share in terms of federal contracts. And I'll change that. And the reason I'll change that is basically A, it is fair, and B, if we want to deal with African American youth employment, those people who are most likely to hire young African Americans will be Black businesses. So that we can do through changes in the Small Business Administration and in other areas. I think raising that minimum wage to $15 an hour will be very, very important. Making sure that all of our kids, regardless of their income, are able to get a higher education by greatly expanding Pell Grants and other federal resources and making public colleges and universities tuition-free and canceling student debt will be extraordinarily impactful for the African American community, where the young people actually leave school more deeply in debt than white kids are leaving school. So those are some of the things that I think we can do, as well as, by the way, investing very heavily in affordable housing. And when we invest in affordable housing, not only we deal with the gentrification issue, not only will we be able to lower rents in America, you're going to put millions of people to work at good paying jobs. Hello?
That's excellent. We're still here. That's excellent. Thank you so much. Last question, Senator. At the Black to the Future Action Fund, we believe in ending the use of incarceration to solve problems, period. But in particular, we believe in ending the use of incarceration to solve the problems of migration. What immigration-related executive actions can we expect from your administration in the first 100 days?
Good. Thank you very much. I think I got the question here. If not, you'll correct me. But first of all, it is a disgrace beyond words that in America today, the richest country in the history of the world, we have more people in jail by far than any other country on earth, including the authoritarian country of China, 4 times our size. So the first thing that we do in terms of criminal justice is we invest in the young people, in jobs and education. And we're going to provide schools with the resources to make sure the kids are not dropping out of school, that they're getting the education they need to go out and get the decent jobs that are out there, and the job training that they need. And that means investing in young people and not more jails and not more incarceration. We got enough jails. I'm here in California, if I remember correctly, over the last many years, massive increase in money for incarceration in jails. Meanwhile, we're not investing in education for our kids. That is exactly the kind of situation that we have got to reverse. So second of all, I think ending the war on drugs will have a profound impact on incarceration. Expunging the records of those people arrested for marijuana will be a big deal. We're not going to incentivize prisons to bring more inmates in because we're going to end private prisons and detention centers in this country. So those are some of the, in terms of immigration, on day one, we will issue an executive order that restores the legal status of the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. We'll end the inhumane border policies that we have right now and establish international standards for asylum. And we will move aggressively to comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. Bottom line here is we have a president who, for cheap political reasons, thinks he can divide us up based on the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation or our religion. That is frankly disgusting. And my job as president is to bring us together around an agenda that works for all working families in this country, not just the 1%.
Excellent. And Senator, we know you only have about 6 minutes left, so we want to make sure to give you an opportunity to give a closing statement to the Action Fund and let us know why you are the best choice to lead the United States and why you are the best choice for Black communities.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for the opportunity to chat with you briefly, and I apologize we don't have much time. Second of all, I understand that the work you are engaged in is very, very difficult. You know, we're taking on hundreds of years of racism. We're taking on the abomination of slavery, of segregation, of Jim Crow, of the pervasive systemic racism that exists today in almost every area of our lives, whether it is financial services, criminal justice, housing, healthcare, you name it. So the work you're doing in trying to create a more democratic society, a non-racist society, an inclusive society, is precisely the work that has to be done. It's the most important work, and that is consistent with what we're trying to do in our campaign and what we will try to do in our administration. This is not easy stuff, as you well know. It's not easy for a president, not easy for your organization. But at the end of the day, here is what my vision is for America. Right now, and you're seeing it play out every single day, we are living in a nation in which a handful of very, very wealthy people have enormous economic and political power. What we have seen over the last 30 and 40 years is a massive, massive increase in income and wealth inequality, impacts everybody. It disproportionately impacts the African American community, who were hit enormously hard by the Wall Street crash of 2008. So bottom line here is what we are trying to do, and this is hard stuff. It is really hard stuff. But we are prepared not only to defeat Trump and his racism and his sexism and his homophobia, but we are prepared to take on Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex. And the way we do that is by involving millions of people in the political process. So what our job, it seems to me, is about is not only defeating Trump, it is transforming this country, revitalizing American democracy, dealing. You know, right now we have all over this country, you have Trump and you've got Republican governors who are trying to suppress the vote, make it harder for people of color, for poor people, for young people to participate. We're going to smash that. We're going to open up the doors of democracy. 18 years of age in this country, you're a citizen, you have the right to vote, and our Attorney General will enforce that right. We are going to have an Attorney General who will be extremely aggressive in dealing with hate crimes, in dealing with discrimination of all forms. So what my vision is about is a democratic society with a small d, where we have the highest voter turnout of any nation on earth, not one of the lowest, where working people have real say in what happens in their lives. And the way we do that is to grow a strong grassroots movement, and what you guys are doing is exactly the right thing to do. So we look forward to working with you and other grassroots organizations during our administration. So once again, thanks for the opportunity to chat. Keep up the fantastic work that you're doing.
Thank you, Senator. We really appreciate you and taking the time to talk with us today. We know that you are running all around trying to drum up votes for this very important primary. So we certainly appreciate the time you took with us. And we will be making our decision within the next week. And so we will circle back and let you know. But in the meantime, no matter what happens, please know how much you've inspired us. Please know how proud we are to be in community with you. And thank you very much for the work that you have done to build a movement that includes all of us.
Well, thank you very much. Let's go forward together. We'll see you soon. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for calling.